Marvel Studios spends hundreds of millions of dollars getting their blockbuster movies just right. They're masters in heightening anticipation and revealing the perfect amount of information to entice audiences without spoiling things. But sometimes, despite their best efforts, information leaks do happen, and they happen more often than you'd think. The finale of Avengers: Infinity War was a massive reveal in the MCU. But due to some loose lips, the events were spoiled well in advance of the movie's release. There have been many shocking leaks in the history of the Marvel Universe that have shaken the MCU to its core, and even caught some Marvel movie stars by surprise. Ever since the early days of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, audiences have been eager for any bit of new information about upcoming movies. There isn't any source too untrustworthy or any information too strange to be considered by fans. While some leaks come from disgruntled employees, some big-name actors have also dropped some shocking information about upcoming movies. Actor Andrew Law revealed information about the Mandarin and his battle against Tony Stark in Iron Man 3, as well as a lot of plot points about Thor: The Dark World. Set photos of some of the Dark Elves had found their way online, and Lawden elaborated on their role in the film. He went on to describe some of the largest plot points in the movie, including the Ether and its connection to the Dark Elves. Lawden also spoiled one of the few truly shocking and permanent deaths in the MCU, that of Loki and Thor's mother, Frigga. While he freely spoke of this sensitive information, there was one aspect of the movie he refused to comment on as he feared backlash from Marvel. He wouldn't reveal whether or not Loki and Thor managed to repair their strained relationship. Although this may seem like a strange sticking point, it makes sense considering their relationship was an important part of Thor Ragnarok. But that was another movie with more than its fair share of spoilers. There was a major leak of Thor Ragnarok, but it was due to a miscommunication rather than malice. Both Vudu and Apple participate in the Movies Anywhere program, which allows fans to watch films on various platforms. However, fans who pre-ordered Ragnarok got quite the shock when they saw the movie available for download on iTunes. It turns out there was a miscommunication between Vudu and Apple regarding the release date of the movie. This resulted in fans being able to view Ragnarok on the streaming service a month earlier than they should have. Marvel was far from pleased and tried to remedy the situation as soon as possible, but it was too late. Copies had already been downloaded and distributed online, making it easy for it to be illegally downloaded. This massive miscommunication ended up costing Disney and Marvel quite a bit of money on rentals and DVD purchases. Not only could anyone download the movie, but one surprising Marvel employee decided to make use of the illegally obtained footage. Taika Waititi directed Thor Ragnarok, and was later tasked with putting together a sizzle reel involving footage from the movie. This was meant to be a promotional video that'd generate excitement for the movie, and Waititi needed an easy way to get footage. So, like many other people, he downloaded Ragnarok from the internet in order to get the footage he needed. He revealed this fact during an interview, and fans were shocked to hear someone like Waititi admit to pirating a Marvel movie. It seems like Waititi faced no repercussions for this, especially since he's talked about being involved with a fourth Thor movie. Another major Ragnarok spoiler made its rounds online before the movie even hit theaters, and ruined one of the best cameos in the history of the MCU. The Weekly Planet podcast shared some information about the movie, including details of the scene where Loki, disguised as Odin, watches some of his loyal subjects put on a play. He even shared the fact that, in the play, Loki's played by actor Matt Damon. Sam Neill and Luke Hemsworth also made appearances in the scene, so Marvel fans still had something to be surprised by. But the damage was done at that point. In response to this situation, representatives from Disney and Matt Damon stayed silent, fearing any comment would do more harm than good. It seems as though information about Thor in particular is easily dispersed before audiences see him on the big screen. We saw his beloved hammer Mjolnir get destroyed during Ragnarok, and many fans wonder what he'd use to fight with during Avengers: Infinity War. A source claiming to work with Marvel Studios said Thor would end up crafting himself a new weapon, but would only be able to create the head. This information ended up being accurate, as Groot provided the handle for Stormbreaker when it was forged. Fans had seen images of the new weapon in leaked concept art and promotional material for toys soon to be released. But eventually, we got to see the Hasbro Stormbreaker, which left no doubt in our minds what Thor's new weapon would be. and looking at the handle made it obvious where it had come from. This might seem like a relatively small bit of information, but combined with a statement made by a mocap actor, it ended up revealing quite a bit about Infinity War. Although mocap actor Terry Notary claimed he wouldn't reveal too much about Groot's role in Infinity War, he definitely said too much during one interview. It's possible he underestimated Marvel fans' ability to put clues together when he said that Groot was going to find a mentor to look up to during the movie. This made it pretty clear that Groot and Thor were going to be spending a lot of time together due to their connection with Stormbreaker.
Bring me Thanos!
Sometimes, even comic book legends need some help being able to keep quiet about certain movie details. Infinity War was a highly anticipated movie featuring many beloved characters created by the late, great Stan Lee. It's only natural that he was excited to talk about the movie, but he only narrowly avoided revealing something he shouldn't have. During an interview about the movie, he said there'd be many characters fans would be excited to see. This wasn't exactly surprising, but we never got to hear Stan Lee elaborate. Before he could continue with his train of thought, his assistant leaned over and whispered something in his ear. Whatever he said caused Stan Lee to decide he said enough, and fans were left to speculate which character he was going to mention. There was another supposed Infinity War spoiler involving Stan Lee which made the rounds on the internet, but was proven to be completely false. Of course, Infinity War featured an obligatory and highly anticipated cameo by Stan Lee, but one fan claimed to have seen it in advance. The first 20 minutes of the film were made available to certain audiences, so this claim didn't sound completely implausible. The source asserted that Peter Parker would end up crashing into a car driven by Stan Lee, who'd exclaim, "It must have been a bug." But in the movie, we see Stan Lee as a bus driver who expresses surprise that these students have apparently never seen a spaceship before. Sometimes, information that emerges about Marvel movies is relatively minor, but other times, huge plot points or new characters are revealed. This happened in the lead-up to the highly anticipated Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Lainey Gossip claimed to have seen the movie early and revealed some relatively important information about it, at least at first. They confirmed Captain America's relationship with Sharon Carter was more of a nod to the comic books than a serious romantic storyline. It was also noted that the villains in the movie would all be humans, albeit some with special enhancements, but the big reveal, which was released prior to the movie hitting theaters, was hidden in the post-credits scene. Until recently, the movie rights to some Marvel characters, including the X-Men, were owned by Fox. This meant Marvel Studios couldn't include them in the MCU, but a couple of them fell into a gray area. Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver have been members of both the X-Men and the Avengers at various points in their comic book history. This meant it was possible for Marvel Studios to incorporate them into the MCU prior to purchasing their rights from Fox. There were some stipulations, such as not being able to call them mutants, but they could use Wanda and Pietro Maximoff. Fans were surprised to learn this information in an interview with Kevin Feige, and even more surprised when the twins showed up in the post-credit scene at the end of The Winter Soldier. That is, if they hadn't read the Lainey Gossip article which revealed this information about a month before the movie was released. Captain America: Civil War is another movie that had some big information leaks. Even the teaser trailer was uploaded to the internet ahead of time for fans who could get past the poor quality, and one death from the movie was revealed before the movie hit theaters. An extra took a photo while on set at the movie and posted it online for fans to see. It revealed that Peggy Carter had passed away, and her funeral would be shown in the movie. Considering Peggy's age, it wasn't a huge shock, but Marvel Studios was reportedly livid. They demanded the photo be removed, but not before most of the internet had already heard about or seen it. Considering that Tony Stark and his best friend Rhodey draw their power from their suits, their designs are integral to their performances in the MCU. One source of information regarding Iron Man 3 was made public before the movie was released, in the form of some merchandise designs that made their way online. They gave audiences a sneak peek at the superpowered costumes for Iron Man and War Machine.
It doesn't end well for the superheroes.
Signing on to portray one of the many beloved superhero characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is a massive undertaking. Many consider it an honor to portray a character who was a beloved part of the childhood of so many fans. Not to mention the fact that this is one of the most profitable franchises out there, making it an excellent career move. But portraying a character in the MCU comes with its own set of challenges, one of which is an ironclad non-disclosure agreement. Marvel Studios doesn't want their secrets getting out, and will do whatever they can to keep this from happening. But sometimes, even the most strict contracts can't account for simple human error. Even the most well-intentioned of actors have been known to slip up from time to time, and some of them have done so more than once. Mark Ruffalo has been playing the role of Bruce Banner ever since 2012's The Avengers, and he's accumulated many fans since then. But while some just tune in to see him on the big screen, others pay attention to his interviews, because they know he might just reveal a major plot point for an upcoming movie. Ruffalo can come across as a lovable and well-intentioned person who just can't help but talk a little bit too excitedly about his upcoming projects. He's leaked so much information that some fans wonder if it's truly accidental, or if Marvel Studios is using him to reveal their own tantalizing bits of information. While it's true that Marvel Studios has certainly poked fun at Ruffalo's penchant for spoilers, some of the facts he's let slip have been far too huge to be purposeful. On one occasion, Ruffalo revealed such a massively important piece of MCU information that he was legitimately worried Disney might terminate his contract over the incident. Ruffalo reprised the role of Bruce Banner for the movie Thor Ragnarok, and was invited to one of the early screenings for the film. This means he was at an event prior to the movie being officially released in theaters, and many fans were looking forward to seeing it on the big screen. Ruffalo decided to do a little bit of fan service by streaming the beginning of the event on Instagram. He was having a great time interacting with fans, but when the time came for the movie to begin, he made a massive mistake. He accidentally pushed a button on his phone which he believed ended the live stream, and then put the phone in his pocket. The only problem was that it hadn't stopped the stream, and it was still recording. Naturally, fans quickly realized they were able to hear things they weren't supposed to be listening to, namely Thor Ragnarok, and one measure Ruffalo had taken to ensure the security and propriety of the effect ended up backfiring spectacularly. Like a conscientious theatergoer, Ruffalo had turned the sound off on his phone before slipping it into his pocket. When people realized what was going on, they immediately began frantically messaging and calling Ruffalo, begging him to turn off his live stream. But not wanting to be rude to his fellow patrons, Ruffalo left his phone in his pocket instead of checking his messages. After about 15 minutes had passed, it was time for Disney to swoop in. A Disney employee ran up to Ruffalo and demanded he turn off his phone immediately. Ruffalo was horrified by what he had done and realized Disney was furious about his mistake. He was worried this technological misunderstanding would cost him his job. Thankfully, Ruffalo claims Disney decided not to take action against him for this incident. Ruffalo was a bit traumatized after this, but it wasn't the first time he would accidentally let us in on some spoilers, later giving away the finale of one of the biggest Marvel movies of all time, Avengers: Infinity War. Fans get excited for standalone Marvel movies, but the Avengers movies are the only ones where we can see all of our favorite heroes fighting side by side. This movie was one which had been teased for so long that anticipation was at an all-time high. The actors in the movie were doing their best to help out with the promotion, and like his co-stars, Ruffalo made some talk show appearances. He and Don Cheadle appeared on an episode of Good Morning America where Ruffalo dropped a spoiler so huge that even Cheadle couldn't contain his shock and horror. The actors discussed what audiences could expect from Infinity War, and were asked about who fans could expect to survive the movie. That's when Ruffalo dropped a massive bomb on the audience, and not even Cheadle could stop him. He exclaimed, "Wait till you see the next one," and then got about midway through the word half before blurting out, "Everybody dies."
Wait till you see this next one. Everybody dies.
It was clear Ruffalo realized he had spoiled the end of one of the most highly anticipated Marvel movies of all time, and there was nothing he could do about it. Cheadle looked on in absolute disgust and disbelief as Ruffalo revealed the ending, and there was nothing he could do about it. Some leaks turn out to be a case of fans reading too much into things, but not this time. People even asked Cheadle afterward if he had known Ruffalo was going to spoil the movie, and he claimed to have been just as surprised and horrified as everyone else. But surprisingly, as far as we know, there were no real repercussions from Disney or Marvel about this unintentional slip-up. It seems as though Disney and Marvel have at least been able to see the silver lining to all of the information revealed by Ruffalo, and have occasionally used it to their advantage. When Avengers: Infinity War finally hit theaters, fans were desperate to know what was going to happen in the following movie. We were all hoping the title of the movie would provide some insight, which made it very exciting when Ruffalo seemingly revealed it on an episode of The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. While talking about the movie, Fallon asked what the title would be, and Ruffalo responded, "The Last Avenger." A black bar shot up over his mouth at the offending moment, but it was easy enough for fans to realize what was said.
Avengers movie is...
It soon became clear this wasn't a slip-up, but was more likely a publicity stunt. The Russo brothers jokingly tweeted, "Mark, you're fired," in reference to the incident. The title of the fourth Avengers movie was later announced to be Avengers Endgame, and not The Last Avenger. Disney played this one just right, and used Ruffalo to drum up publicity for the upcoming Avengers movie. The reality is that Marvel Studios understands leaks happen from time to time, even if they do their best to prevent them. Anthony Russo admits it's something even he struggles with from time to time. Part of generating publicity for a movie means giving interviews and making statements. And everyone is trying to get information out of you. Russo says, you have to constantly be analyzing what you're saying on a very detailed level. He adds that fans and journalists are always looking for the next big piece of information, so it can be hard to avoid saying the wrong thing. The studio knows it can't trust its actors, who can't seem to trust themselves with sensitive information, chance of plot points being dispersed to the general public. In the lead-up to Infinity War, cast members weren't allowed to have the entire script in their possession. They were given only their own scenes to review, so they were forced to go through the movie not knowing how it would end. This seemed like a solid idea, yet even this extreme preventative measure wasn't enough to stop the entire ending from being ruined. And Ruffalo is far from the only Marvel cast member who's released such sensitive information. Compared to Mark Ruffalo, Tom Holland's a relative newcomer to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Fans have enjoyed watching him take on the role of Peter Parker, discovering what it is to be a superhero. But even he has let fans in on a few secrets over the years. While he made his first MCU appearance during Captain America: Civil War, Holland's first standalone movie was Spider-Man: Homecoming. Leading up to the release, he was only too excited to talk about the project. But because of this, he ended up revealing far more than he intended. During a Facebook Live Q&A, he went into great detail concerning his work on the movie, until he completely crossed the line. In the lead-up to Homecoming, Holland underwent intense gymnastics and dance training in order to pull off some of the exciting Spider-Man stunts we saw on the big screen. He was asked about which movie moment was the most frightening, and ended up leaking an important scene in the movie. Holland admitted that while he trained hard, there was one stunt he couldn't handle on his own. He said, "There was some time where they dangled my poor stunt double under a helicopter and dunked him in a lake." What he was describing was a scene from the movie which hadn't been used in any of the advertising so far, and one Marvel didn't intend to be revealed until fans saw the film. Holland immediately realized he had made a huge mistake, and clapped his hand over his mouth in horror. He let out a curse and wondered aloud how much trouble he'd find himself in as a result of this information leak. The next time Holland spoiled a movie for an audience was even more extreme. This time it wasn't his movie, but the group effort of many big stars to put Avengers: Infinity War together. One lucky group of moviegoers got to view the movie at the ArcLight Cinema in Hollywood, along with some very special guests. It was a star-studded night with Joe and Anthony Russo, Kevin Feige, Benedict Cumberbatch, and Tom Holland. The movie was at times brutal and difficult to watch, and we said goodbye to many of our favorite Marvel characters. The death of Peter Parker was the most emotionally charged moment for some, and was a poignant end to the film. But thanks to Tom Holland's attempt at a joke, this impactful movie moment was spoiled for everyone in the audience. Before getting a chance to actually watch the movie, the fans were introduced to these Marvel VIPs, and Holland was perhaps a bit too excited to introduce himself. Instead of a simple hello, he declared, "I'm alive!" It was an ill-advised joke, which served to let everyone in the audience know his character wasn't going to survive the end of Infinity War. In general, the information Holland tends to reveal isn't usually integral to the plot, but fans can't help but notice he seems to be constantly revealing bits of information Marvel Studios would rather keep secret. One of the exciting parts of Homecoming was seeing all of the new gadgets and technology Spider-Man had at his disposal. At Comic-Con, during the lead-up to Homecoming, Holland revealed the movie would deal with different types of web shooting technology. After talking about it for a bit, he seemed to realize he had perhaps said too much, and changed the subject. Marvel fans have seen Tom Holland's version of Spider-Man in Captain America: Civil War, Spider-Man: Homecoming, and Avengers: Infinity War so far. His second standalone movie in the MCU will be Spider-Man: Far From Home, and audiences are eager for any little bit of information he may let slip. Far From Home takes place following the events of Avengers Endgame, so anything we find out could wind up being a serious spoiler for the next Avengers movie. This makes Holland's situation all the more precarious, and he managed to let a major spoiler slip while talking about Far From Home. Not only does this information impact the movie, but Holland's future in the MCU. Although Spider-Man is a Marvel character, Sony retains the movie rights. After making several of their own Spider-Man movies, Sony allowed Marvel Studios to use the character in their cinematic universe. They set up a limited amount of movies, and as far as everyone knew, Far From Home was as far as the contract between Marvel and Sony extended. Fans have been wondering what'll happen to Peter Parker after the movie is over. Will he return to Sony, or will he be staying in the MCU? During an interview, Holland was asked about Far From Home and the character of Peter Parker. Holland started out by harmlessly talking about how Peter Parker is working on growing not just as a superhero, but as a human being. And before long, Holland had dropped a serious spoiler. He talked about Parker's character arc extending over the next 2 movies. People were shocked, and Holland could have tried to walk back that statement, but instead he doubled down. He said there will be a Spider-Man 2 and 3 before adding, "Sorry Marvel," but instead of feeling furious with Tom Holland, it seems Marvel Studios has been trying to embrace the meme of Tom Holland spoiling things. They've made jokes of it, including one where Holland accidentally revealed the poster for Avengers Infinity War. Of course, none other than Mark Ruffalo had sent him the poster in the first place. This has caused fans to wonder just how many of these supposed spoilers are actually Marvel cleverly planting information in a way which is exciting for fans to discover. While some fans can't resist the allure of MCU spoilers, others try to avoid them at all costs. So when Zoe Saldana supposedly dropped a huge spoiler before Infinity War had even come out, there was an immediate backlash. Originally, Infinity War was set to be split into 2 parts. However, later on, it was announced that the second part would be its own movie, and that the title would reveal some insight into the plotline. Due to this, prior to Endgame being announced, some fans were eager to know what the movie was going to be called. The 2 movies were filmed back-to-back, and Saldana was interviewed midway through her work on Infinity War. She was talking about where they were in filming before adding, "We all have to go back for Gauntlet." People immediately assumed she was saying the 4th movie would be called Avengers Gauntlet, and that she had spoiled the title. When it was eventually revealed that the name of the movie would be Avengers Endgame, those thoughts were quickly put to bed. But this doesn't mean Saldana has never revealed sensitive information about a Marvel movie. During a later interview, she talked about wrapping up filming on Infinity War and the fate Gamora met at the hands of Thanos. According to Saldana, it didn't feel like an ending, but more of a to be continued. She added that she'd be returning to shoot Endgame, which might be a hint that Gamora isn't really gone for good. After losing so many characters at the end of Infinity War, fans are wondering who they've said their final farewells to. During a seemingly innocuous post on Instagram, Chris Pratt revealed a huge Marvel spoiler. He wished a very happy birthday to actress Pom Klementieff, who plays Mantis in the MCU. Pratt talked about what a great person she is, and added that he can't wait to start shooting Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 with her. But both Mantis and Pratt's character Star-Lord perished at the end of Infinity War. So apparently, we know those two are going to find some way to come back to life at the very least. Not only does Tom Holland spoil Marvel movies for fans, he spoils other franchises as well. Holland worked with director J.A. Bayona on the movie The Impossible, and the two became friends. Bayona also directed Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom, which stars Chris Pratt. Apparently, Bayona told the plot of the movie to Holland, who turned around and filled Pratt in. Eventually, when Pratt saw the script, he realized Holland had clued him in on every major detail, including the ending. Sometimes stars reveal tantalizing bits of evidence on accident, but other times they try to intentionally mislead us. Chris Pratt may have messed up with his birthday wish to Pom Klementieff, but he tried to save it by throwing some information out there about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. He stated that for all anyone knows, the movie could take place before the events of Infinity War. However, director James Gunn confirmed that it would take place afterwards, which seemed to disprove Pratt's assertion that the movie would take place earlier in MCU history. Dave Bautista plays Drax the Destroyer, who is also a victim of the decimation. However, he's revealed that fans can expect to see him on the big screen again in both Avengers Endgame and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Although Bautista claimed not to know exactly how Drax would make it back to the land of the living, he did confirm he will appear in both movies. The cast of Guardians of the Galaxy certainly did reveal plenty of information, but they didn't give away nearly as much information as Mark Ruffalo and Tom Holland before them. Infinity War was a movie that involved tons of beloved Marvel movie characters. But not everyone made it into the film. Despite appearing in Captain America: Civil War, Scott Lang was conspicuously absent from the movie. Instead, he appeared in Ant-Man and the Wasp, which was the first MCU film to come out following Infinity War. Although the majority of the movie didn't have an impact on the greater MCU, the mid-credits scene had audience members on the edge of their seats. By the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp, it looked like the characters would escape the decimation unscathed. However, the mid-credits scene showed Hank Pym, Hope Van Dyne, and Janet Van Dyne disappearing, leaving Scott Lang trapped in the quantum realm. This scene was the most shocking of the entire movie, and it ended up leaked online before the film hit theaters. Many Marvel movies contain credit scenes which are just for fun, but in this case, it was a huge deal. Someone made a bootleg copy of the mid-credits scene and released it online for anyone to see. Ant-Man and the Wasp was the first movie by Marvel Studios to feature a female hero with equal billing to a male one. But Captain Marvel is the first standalone movie featuring a female hero, and it's easy to see why this is a major moment in MCU history. It's taken over a decade to get here, and Captain Marvel will inevitably be compared to DC's famous female superhero, Wonder Woman. Her movie did incredibly well at the box office, and it would be an embarrassment to Marvel fans if Captain Marvel fails to achieve a similar amount of success. That's a lot of pressure to put on the character of Carol Danvers. But her importance doesn't end there. Marvel Studios claim she is going to be the strongest hero in their cinematic universe, and that's a tall order. We've seen that as our heroes grow in power, so do their adversaries. This is truly ushering in a new era of immensely powerful characters, and it's safe to say the stakes have never been higher. With this in mind, you can imagine how intensely Marvel has tried to keep information about the movie a secret. But despite their best efforts, they've struggled to contain even minor information. Actress Brie Larson, who portrays Captain Marvel, has been worried about inadvertently divulging important information. In an effort not to end up with a reputation like that of Tom Holland or Mark Ruffalo, she's developed a unique method of maintaining her silence. Larson admits to being eager to talk about the movie and share her excitement with fans. However, she's horrified at the thought of dropping a spoiler or two and potentially ruining the experience of seeing the movie for the first time. So she's taken to keeping a journal of her time filming Captain Marvel and her feelings on the project. That way, she's not tempted to overshare when it comes time to be interviewed. But although Larson has done her best to maintain a spoiler-free movie, information keeps leaking despite her best efforts. Ever since actor Jude Law was revealed to be involved in the movie, fans have been desperate to know what character he's going to play. While Jude Law struggled to avoid spilling this information, it ended up being spilled by a shocking source. It was Disney itself who spoiled this major piece of information about the Captain Marvel movie. On one photo of Jude Law and Brie Larson, they added the caption, "Jude Law as Mar-Vell, the leader of Star Force." Later, the caption was hastily corrected to read just "Leader of the Star Force." This coincided with some information fans had spotted on some innocent-looking toy packaging. They read "Leader of the Star Force team, Jan Rog, is a hero among the Kree and a key asset to the Supreme Intelligence in the war against the Skrulls." To comic book fans, this was extraordinarily telling. Jan Rog is a colonel in the Kree army who makes the acquaintance of Mar-Vell. Later, Jan Rog is consumed by jealousy of Mar-Vell and becomes a bitter enemy. Eventually, Marvel Studios accepted that Jude Law's role had officially been spoiled and released a cast feature in which they confirmed he'll be playing Jan Rog. Another major leak concerning Captain Marvel came from veteran Marvel actor Samuel L. Jackson, who plays the role of Nick Fury. MCU heroes don't always have the same exact powers, personalities, and personal tragedies as their comic book counterparts, but they're often fairly close. In the comic books, Captain Marvel can fly, manipulate energy, and has superhuman strength, stamina, and endurance. But Jackson claims the MCU version of Captain Marvel will have an even more impressive ability that'll likely be integral to defeating Thanos. During an interview, he stated that Captain Marvel will be able to travel through time. Whether it's an inherent ability she possesses or a piece of technology, it's unlike anything we've seen the character able to do before. Everyone knows that leaking information about upcoming Marvel movies is against the rules. But what happens to those who knowingly do so anyway? Many of these sources choose to remain anonymous to avoid drawing the wrath of Marvel Studios, but not everyone is successful. The website Latino Review was the first to reveal Marvel's plans to release Guardians of the Galaxy all the way back in 2014. It also shared information about Iron Man 3 before Marvel Studios had a chance to. According to Latino Review, the vice president of loss prevention at Marvel, Robert Grosser, threatened the website with legal action. He described the information they had published as confidential confidential and wanted to know exactly who was responsible. But the website claimed it was within their journalistic right to publish such information and protect the identity of their sources. The Latino Review claimed not to be impressed by the letter and refused to cooperate with the investigation. Apparently, one way in which Marvel deals with the security breaches is to send a form letter trying to identify the source of the leak. Latino Review released the letter, which stated that Marvel had hired an independent security firm just for dealing with issues such as these. It emphasized that Marvel prefers to deal with matters quietly and without drawing attention to the situation. There was also a part where it was heavily implied whoever helped them find the source of the spoilers would be compensated for their trouble. Although the letter warned that the consequences would be severe if the source wasn't found, it appears this was an empty threat. The Latino Review flat out mocked the letter and stated they had no intent of backing down. Another source of information went as far as actually stealing a physical copy of a Marvel script. It was a script for the Avengers, and the copy belonged to none other than Samuel L. Jackson himself. It was unknown who had taken the script, but it disappeared from one of the movie's shooting locations. It was thought that someone working on the set had taken it and was trying to sell it to the highest bidder. The source provided photos of the script to prove they had the real thing. An authentic script once owned by Samuel L. Jackson is something many fans would love to own, but none were willing to risk the legal repercussions of getting involved. There were rumors that production on the movie had been shut down as a result of the theft, but this was later deemed to be untrue. Although the filming continued as usual despite the breach, this incident did force Marvel to rethink its method of script distribution. Robert Downey Jr. was so furious about the incident that he wasn't willing to take any chances while filming Infinity War. He even wrote up some fake scripts to leave laying around just in case anyone decided to steal one. Actor Paul Bettany lamented how long he had spent wanting to get his hands on a completed script. Once he thought he had finally succeeded, he read through it and then learned it was one of the many fakes floating around the studio. In recent years, it seems as though Marvel has adapted its approach to spoilers and leaked information. Marvel Studios has perfected the art of teasing its audience and getting them excited for their latest cinematic offerings. It's gotten to the point where it's hard to tell which leaks are true information or if it's planted by Marvel. News outlets couldn't stop reporting that Tom Holland had supposedly spoiled the title of Spider-Man Far From Home after he held up a tablet with the title on it during an Instagram video. However, it was obvious to most people that this was a carefully cultivated reveal by Marvel Studios, who has painted Holland as a lovable and over-enthusiastic source of spoilers. It's clear that going forward, these leaks have become yet another way for Marvel to disperse information to fans. How do you feel about spoilers regarding the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Do you love learning the latest information even if it ruins the surprise? Or do you like to go into the theater with as little info as possible? Let us know in the comment section below, and don't forget to subscribe to CBR for more MCU videos. Thanks for watching.